into tuning it. I did a poll on ethanol, it was E50, and we already are making some power. So let me just save this, and then I'll overlay the last 200 horsepower pull to show you how much mid-range torque we're picking up. So that's the same exact amount of horsepower, and then that's where we got all of that. We're making full boost at about 4,800 RPM instead of at redline. So that's pretty crazy. Consistent at least. Woo, 208. 195 foot-pounds. Jesus. That is beautiful. Alright, so our data log looks good. So 208 horsepower at 36 pounds of boost, which is the same boost as before, but more power. And our peak torque, we made 201 foot-pounds of torque, so we're up 15 foot-pounds of torque on the peak, which is fantastic. So we're making our peak torque at 5,000 RPM, which if we look at our nitrous control, that's 5,000 RPM, so we're not even on nitrous making that torque, so we are just using that to spool up. But that is a beautiful graph. I have the nitrous shutting off just as soon as we're hitting our peak boost. It creeps up a little bit, but everything looks good. I'll touch up the fuel map a little bit. There's a little bit of correction here, and I think that's because I need to decrease the delay and off time for the fuel on the nitrous. I wish we could get more ethanol in it, but it looks like all we're going to get out of this tank is E56. So it is what it is. As far as the other stuff we changed is our fuel pressure. You can see the fuel pressure is rising with boost, sitting at about 76 psi, which is the amount of boost over which the factory psi is. So that is working fantastic. Before, our fuel injectors were maxed out. Now our injectors are only at about 60% duty cycle, which is about what I would expect, which is fantastic. If we had a fourth cylinder on this thing, it'd be making well over 400 horsepower. So the fuel injection numbers make sense. Our engine temp is great, 187. We're still running a little hot on the intake air temps, about 105 degrees towards the top. Not much we can do about that. The intercooler fan is definitely helping, but just because of where everything is and how much pressure we're making, there's not a whole lot to be done about that. But 208 horsepower with more fuel system to go. I don't want to run any more boost than that. That's a lot of boost. So I'm going to let it cool down a little bit. I might try to put a degree of timing in it and see if it picks anything up. If it does, cool. If it doesn't, then that's pretty much it. Our restriction at this point for more power, we would need a bigger, I don't know if a bigger turbo, because the torque is still pretty flat. We probably just need more boost pressure, probably a better flowing intake manifold, larger throttle body. We're pretty much being choked out by the factory stuff. So that is for way down the road, but fantastic. So just for comparison, this was our 200 horsepower pull before, and this is our new 208. And again, nitrous is just spool and turbo up. 5,000 RPM, it's off. That's all turbo. That is just wild. Out of this little tiny engine. That is wild. Picked up more power and torque. There's just 1 degree of timing. God damn. That's all she wrote, folks. There's another degree of timing. It didn't give us anything. All right, she is maxed out. We have 212 horsepower. I'll put the graph up here. Where we can't get any more out of that. I put a degree of timing into it. It didn't gain anything. I'm not putting any more boost through it. It could make more, but we're forcing air through a really small hole, so we're not doing any more than that. I'm not comfortable with it. If we can get a better intake manifold and a bigger throttle body, this car is going to pick up heaps of power on less boost. The throttle body is that big, like, not joking, it's actually that big. So we're doing all of this through a hole that size. And the factory intercooler the factory intake manifold has the factory intercooler in it, which is a massive air restriction. It's really, really small. The fin density isn't great. So if we can get a better intake manifold on this sucker and a bigger throttle body, I'd have to find something that's like between this and what's on a Juke. Juke won't be too big. Then we could probably get another, my guess would be 20 to 30 foot-pounds of torque out of it at the way it sits. We're just creating a ton of pressure now, and it doesn't have anywhere to go. I mean, this is a pretty beefy intercooler. We know we're not hitting restrictions there. We know our boost reference comes from here, and our boost pressure reading comes from the manifold, and at wastegate spring pressure, we're getting what the spring rate is, which means we're not getting any pressure drops or anything noticeable across that. So 212 is where it is. Plenty of fuel system left. Now it's got heaps of mid-range torque when he wants to use the nitrous, and it can also be driven around without the nitrous. So that concludes this thing. I'll see if we can get a video of it putting around. I do need to hook up the front wheel speed sensors, but that's not really a priority right now. It was getting everything working. I do have the hard lines and everything for the nitrous, which we'll do that. I'll put some pictures up when that's all done. And I also got in a pressure gauge, but that's all boring stuff. But I will get some pictures of it when it's all completely finished and put that in like a short or something. But tuning and building wise, all done for now. I know it ain't perfect. I need to be able to get to these connectors to diagnose stuff, but the wiring looks a hell of a lot better. Just loomed up some of it and wrapped some of it up just to make it a little bit more presentable, and tied some wires together so stuff's not floating around. Again, I know that's not perfect. Get over it. Also, I'm gonna surprise Phil with 2 buttons. We have anti-lag, and we have a launch control. Now, he can't use launch control, technically speaking, because automatic transmission. But he can, instead of having to pop it off the rev limiter to make it spit fire or to show off, you know, he has that. Now, anti-lag he can use. So, if he's in a situation where either he doesn't have nitrous or doesn't want to use his nitrous, he can use the anti-lag instead. You just can't shift with it. He can't take his foot off the throttle because, you know, the clutch might explode. Though, when we do shift, we do have the ignition cut off, so we actually might be able to use it. We're going to have to experiment with that. But that's going to be a great way to get this thing up on boost. And I'm going to make that so he can hold the button down to turn it on. That way, if he is shifting, he'll be able to let the button go. I'm going to, I don't know where I'm going to mount the buttons. I'm going to kind of just leave them like that and let him pick. But it would be kind of nice to like put it on the shifter maybe. Maybe I'll print him a new shifter and put the rolling anti-lag button in there. So yeah. And I also added the input for the nitrous pressure sensor, which we will put in when we get the brackets for the other bottle and hardline everything. So that looks much better. Again, I know it's not perfect. Get over it. So yeah.
Slow down before this turn. I kind of wish I could drive this thing.
We just hear the nitrous spray. It's awesome.
ain't smoking. Well, it ain't smoking, that's good. How is it?
She fucking rips.
Yeah?
She goes.
Scared out all, Sarah?
No.
But
It was
it's not
fun.
as aggressive as it was before, which is nice.
What do you mean?
Like before when the boost came on, it, like come on hard and then like suck you back. This, as soon as the nitrous starts spraying, she's just like, you can feel it like go, and I'm like, ah.
So I could hear you guys when you did your pull over near the pizza place.
Yeah, we almost whacked a fucking car. Dude, I came around, I was coming around, I'm like, all right, what? And all of a sudden this asshole just stops and then decides to start pulling out and then stop again. I'm like, this fucking douche. Everybody's having cookouts and everything today. I'm just trying to rip a smart car.
It drove good though, smooth.
Yeah, smooth as shit.
Did it feel like 212 horsepower?
No,
Less? More?
it felt like a little rocket ship. It felt like smooth.
So you've driven my Cube. Was it as fast as my Cube? Probably.
I think it might be faster.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it's way lighter. That's not an insult. It's significantly lighter. Yeah, so the Cube has almost 300 horsepower. And this is missing, what, 1,000 pounds from the Cube?
Yep.
So it's making 212 horsepower. So yeah, that about adds up. Because that'd be almost a full second off the quarter mile time right there.
She moves. She goes.